Welcome back to A Minute with Alan. This episode is HR. Now, a lot of you know, I don't think much of human resources. I think that function should be in the line areas, just as people with P&L responsibility are in charge of, say, finance. They should also be in charge of human resources. I think human resources is often misunderstood. People think they represent them. They don't. Human resources represents the company. And so they're not as passionate or empathetic as you might imagine they'd be to employees. I think HR stands for hardly relevant. I don't think we need it. Having said all that, I'll introduce you to my three HR all-stars. Over the course of my career, over 30 years in consulting and coaching and so forth, many of which were with Fortune 500 companies. And I would admonish you to understand that virtually no one who's in human resources as a full-time career path, I'm not talking about people who rotate through for a couple of months, no one in human resources as a career path who becomes, let's say, an executive in human resources, to my knowledge, has ever been named CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I've never heard of it. And if you can name a couple, fine. But it doesn't happen. Actuaries become CEOs. General counsels become CEOs. Sales vice presidents become CEOs. CTOs become CTOs. CFOs. I could go on. But let me name my all-stars because these people are magnificent. At Merck, I met a guy named Art Stromer. Passed away about 2 years ago in his 80s. We stayed in touch. And Art was the director of human resources. He reported to the vice president of human resources, and Art felt his job was to introduce me to line people who had budgets and could buy and could use my kind of value. And that's what he did. And he did it consistently, and he supported that, and he was amazing. And that was early in my career when I was starting out, and Merck, where Art worked, had become a client. I worked with them for 12 years. Art was there all 12 years. I wanted to name our first child Art Stromer, but my daughter probably would have objected. A second is a woman named Marilyn Martini, who worked at Hewlett-Packard. And Hewlett-Packard somehow had gotten a hold of $1 billion consulting. Marilyn read it. She said it was quite good. And she invited me out to become part of a competition, really, among some people they wanted to be change management consultants for them. And of course, at Hewlett-Packard, and same thing at Merck at the time, there were more talent and intelligence per square foot than you can imagine anywhere. These were bright people in these companies. They hired the best. And so I got up to make this presentation in front of about 40 people. They each had a copy of my book. And it must have worked out pretty well because I worked with Hewlett-Packard for 10 years. And Marilyn did the same thing Art had done. She introduced me to line buyers. She said that is her job, and that's what I did. And Hewlett-Packard gave out a copy of Hewlett and Packard's book. They were alive back then, of course, The HP Way, to all new employees, and then they gave out a copy along with it of $1 Billion Consulting to all new employees. And Marilyn came to me once, and they had a lot of consultants working for them, but I quickly rose here to the most preferred of the organization. She said, "You are our organizational change consultant." Bless her. She was in one of my workshops about 4 years ago or so on the West Coast. And then finally there's Mary Haymore. And Mary Haymore was at Allergan, which has since been purchased by others and so forth. They specialized in pharmaceuticals, especially medication for the eyes and things like that, contact lenses. And Mary saw her job the same way. She introduced me to the CEO of the company. And I worked with them for 2 years before the company moved on, but I was the personal coach of the CEO of Allergan. Mary and her husband lived on a horse farm, on a farm where they had horses and livestock and so forth. And that's one of the few clients' houses I ever stayed at. There weren't many places to stay in Waco, Texas. I stayed with her, and they went out, and they made sure I had the Wall Street Journal in the mornings when I stayed with them, which I don't know how they got it or where they got it. So I just want to mention these people who were brilliant and helpful to my career. They were out there. Where are they today for you?